My next patron question is from Diver, who wants me to compare two movies centered on the same World War II battle. When the movie Midway was announced last year, I had some mixed feelings around the film. As an avid buff of the Pacific Theater in World War II, I was really looking forward to seeing a retelling of one of its most important naval battles, especially after seeing the trailers, but I was rather skeptical regarding some of the casting and filmmaking choices. After coming out of the theater, I can safely say that I found it to fall somewhere in the middle. I was quite impressed in many ways, but in others I was kind of right about my skepticism. Seeing the film made me want to revisit the earlier 1976 film, starring Charlton Heston and Henry Fonda, to see how it compared to the new film. There was a lot of aspects I thought the old film did better, but I also felt it had some issues as well. As a whole, I honestly feel the same way about the old Midway that I do about the new Midway. They both have their ups and downs, and from my standpoint, I thought both films were the same in quality. Which Midway film did you think was stronger, the old or the new? Interesting enough, I feel the same way regarding both films. They're okay but flawed war pictures and close to each other in quality, although curiously enough, I thought they were polar opposites in terms of strengths and weaknesses. Which do I prefer? I was actually surprised by this, but I give the slight edge to 2019's Midway. I thought that movie was at its best when looking at the planning and preparation for the Battle of Midway. We see the strategizing on both sides, with Patrick Wilson as Lieutenant Commander Edwin Layton being given the most prominent role. You can tell the filmmakers did a lot of research, and according to historians, the film did succeed at being mostly accurate. The film does attempt to follow a lot of characters, who do have to be simplified with cliched lines, but I think Roland Emmerich was able to respect and honor the brave Marines and pilots involved in the battle. Now, this is an Emmerich film, so both the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which opens the movie, and the Battle of Midway itself go for heavy spectacle and a lot of bombast. I did start to get a bit exhausted as the battle wore on, and we get constant shootings and bombings. However, the movie does enough to become a passable war picture, even with its flaws. With the 1976 film about Midway, I actually found the scenes of the American and Japanese navies planning the attack to be less interesting than the actual battle itself. The film includes a lot of great actors like Charlton Heston, Henry Fonda, Cliff Robertson, Toshiro Mifune, and Hal Holbrook, in addition to small appearances from Robert Mitchum, James Coburn, and Pat Morita, and all do well in playing their parts. However, they have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, as the participants are not as fleshed out on the page. There's also a completely unnecessary fictional subplot involving an admiral's son in love with a Japanese-American woman. It just pads the runtime and helps make the first hour kind of a slog to get through. However, I do think the movie picks up in the second half, when the Battle of Midway starts. Jack Smite does a good job of directing those scenes, showing all the combat that happened and what the pilots had to face. Universal Pictures was experimenting with a new sound system called Sensurround at the time, and Midway was one of the films they used it on, and you can really feel them take advantage of this during the battle scenes. John Williams wrote a fitting score for the movie too. One curious device used by the film is inserting stock footage from documentaries and other movies at several points. I don't know what the special effects budget was that necessitated them doing this, and it is very obvious when we cut to old film footage, but I see what the filmmakers were trying to do here. However, upon further research, I found out they used footage filmed at different battles, and thus we see airplanes that were not even used in the Battle of Midway. For Toshiro Mifune's role as Admiral Yamamoto, they actually dubbed his voice with famed voice actor Paul Frees. Frees was actually chosen by Mifune personally, so I give this some leeway, but it's still unusual hearing the Haunted Mansion voice coming out of his mouth. Much like the recent Midway, this Midway does enough right to make for an okay experience even with its problems. I guess if you're curious to see a dramatized depiction of the battle, both movies are manageable enough. If you have seen them, let me know in the comments which you prefer, and thank you for your question, Diver.